everyone. Welcome to Two Poets, the show where we talk about creativity and writing and all that great stuff. I'm Corey, and this is my buddy here.
Ben.
Yep, Ben, just Ben.
I'm Ben.
Great intro,
Hi.
Ben.
Thank you. I was nervous leading up to that. I was rehearsed and prepared.
I could tell,
Yeah.
he was
It was
sweating.
my big moment.
Yeah, we literally had a 15-minute conversation before this episode started where he was like, I don't know if I should say my name. What do I say? Yes, but this is Two Poets. This is the first episode, Ben.
Two poets.
Yeah, Two Poets.
This is it.
First episode. It's going to be great. We really don't know what we're doing. We just decided to start a podcast.
But that's cool because a lot of times when you do creative stuff, you don't know what you're doing. You just throw something out there. You throw an idea out there and you just make it happen and see what it does. So
yeah, that's basically what writers do, artists do,
we're
creatives
doing.
do. Yeah. So yeah, so what is this show? I'm sure that you were listening, listeners, as you tune in and you want to know what the show's about. Well, what is the show about? We are basically a podcast where each week we are going to take a prompt from a listener. So we will tell you how to send all those in at the end of the show. Basically, you send us a prompt. We will pick a random one at the end of each and every episode. So that way we can work on it for the next week. But we are going to... The prompt could be anything, and then we are going to write a poem or a story about it.
Mm-hmm. We're going to throw ourselves upon your mercy. So do your worst.
Or your best.
Or your best.
Or your best. I mean, we like good ones.
Because we will try to not do our worst.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we're not professionals or anything like that, but we do like to write.
We do.
Yeah.
And we've both done some writing projects. We've done some writing in our time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, that's kind of what brought us together on this is, we both have published works and we both love to write and kind of have a passion to just chill and talk and talk about all things creative. And so we decided this. So yeah, I actually approached Ben. I was like, hey, Ben, want to sit and just kind of bullshit and just talk on a show and we'll call it a podcast?
Hell yeah.
And then it kind of turned into this, And so, like I said, we've both been writing for some time and decided that this is the best way to do it. And each week we're also going to hit, different topics that have to do with creativity. Like, where does inspiration come from? The age-old question, or what is your writing process? We're going to tackle all those types of questions, and we might even get really vulnerable on the show.
Yeah, I think so. What do you do when there is no inspiration and you have to still create,
You sit in a corner and cry.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
You cry. And then you write a poem about how sad you are.
Yes, that's the best inspiration.
Actually, it's true. Sadness is usually, depravity is the greatest inspiration. I feel like in art, whether it's music or movies or poetry or novel, anything that is sad, depraved, lonely, those are always the best. Yeah. There's something really beautiful about sadness.
No, I actually completely agree. So I recently, a couple months ago, I found all my old notebooks from when I was preteen, teenager, early 20s.
That's awesome.
I kept them all. Surprisingly, I kept them all.
Yeah.
I didn't lose them, but I read through them last month and just kind of flipped through them, and I was like, I was really sad.
Yeah. That's awesome. Man, I do not know. I do not know if I have any of my old stuff. I have some bins. I have some tubs full of notebooks and writings and stuff from school. But I don't think I have anything from when I was back then, because I don't think I was really journaling that much. Mm-hmm. Journaling's hard for me, I think. It's hard to intentionally sit down every day and record whatever thoughts you have.
Yeah.
It's just a lot easier to just in the moment, just sit down and throw 3 or 4 lines together and just leave it at that, and then don't do anything for a week and then come back and do that. So people who journal, my hat's off to you, because that's a lot of deep work sometimes.
Yeah. And see, I wouldn't even consider my notebooks that I had, they wasn't even necessarily journaling. That was just a bunch of songs and poems that I wrote. And I tried the same thing. I tried the whole journaling thing. I was like, all right, this year I'm going to journal every day.
Oh, it's hard.
I got think day 7 and I missed a day and I was pissed at myself. And it's like, I'm never going to keep up with this.
Well, and it's like, it feels like you have to write every detail. And then if you miss a day, then the next day you're like, crap, I got to remember everything. And that's just not what it should be. Like, it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah. I think we put too much pressure on ourselves when we journal.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some people that, and here we are, listeners, we're diving right into it. All right.
I guess.
We're diving straight into the show. This is what the show's about. Yeah. And I feel like there are some people who it is just in them to journal.
Yeah.
You know, they have no problem getting their thoughts out and their feelings out, you know, and I can't do that as
extremely
well.
introspective, like constantly focused on bettering themselves. Like those people write journals. If it's hard to journal if you are not focused on personal like betterment, like if you're not trying to strive towards being better or becoming a better version of yourself, journaling is kind of hard and it's kind of pointless because if all you're doing is recording your feelings and emotions with no like direction for that, then you're just logging data or logging weird information that's personal to you and it becomes a chore. So I feel like people that are motivated to use it to make themselves a better version or work towards a better part of their mentality or their livelihood or their actions, like those people, those are the journalers. That's what journaling or diary keeping should be for, I feel like. Unless you're on a sea voyage and then you're keeping a log. So that if you die, people know what's happening, you know, like 1800s.
Yeah, I feel like that's a little different.
Log entry number 129.
We are out of water. The salt water is ruining my stomach digestion. I don't know how much longer we can survive.
I've been sick for days.
If you find this, it's already too late. Tell my nephew's cousin I love him.
If you find this, it's most likely I am dead. Yep. Do you remember how old you were, like the first time you ever wrote a poem or like cognitively like sat down and is that the right word? I don't know. You sat down and you just wrote something and it was a landmark for you and you're like, oh wow, I just wrote a poem or something like that.
I'm going to say I was 13. Nice. I think was probably the first time I ever wrote something. Like I totally like digested music and so much and like read so many books. But I think, the first time, and it was a song is what it was. It didn't start as a song because I had just started learning guitar at 13. And I remember I had written something, I think it had to do, I don't know, it's probably some kid stuff. Like, I don't know, I'm bummed that I stayed home again this week. I don't know what it was about. It was something kind of sad because I remember I was probably in trouble or something, and that's when I wrote it. But I remember that I had been learning guitar for a couple months, and I learned 3 chords, and I was like, I'm going to put this to music. And I remember it being the worst song absolutely ever. You know, and it had like the happiest chords because I learned G, C, and D first. And so those are just like super happy chords, happy major chords, and, you know, and then, I just remember it was terrible, but I was like, I did this. And I had this old Hewlett-Packard computer with those long gray microphones that you could like hook up to it, you know, and the audio jack. And I remember I recorded it and we could burn CDs at the end. I burned it to a CD. And I took it to my friend's house. I was like, look what I did. And I listened to it again. I was like, oh, this is crap. I can't sing very well.
In the moment, you get really excited and then you show it to someone. And when you show it to someone, that's when you're like, oh,
that's when you get the realization of I'm getting judged at this moment.
That's so funny.
What about you? When was the first time you like wrote something, regardless of what it was?
I think I was probably about 15 or 16. And I remember it just being like, it was more just like having a bunch of feelings about stuff, just like feelings about life and emotional things. And I was social, but I was not very like open. Like I didn't have close friends in high school. So I had people that I was around and people that I, were friends and stuff, but I wasn't like deeply engaged with people and on a relational level to that extent. So I didn't have a big outlet for a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember just like sitting down and writing out my feelings and just putting it in kind of like I don't know, just trying to be artistic with it and not knowing how to do that. And so you think of like a song that you've heard, or you think of like some kind of musical style or something, and you try to write words to that.
Mm-hmm.
And music was a big influence too, because it's like, if you are not brought up in like in literature or exposed to a lot of stuff like that, the only thing you have to go to is music for poetry or rhyme scheme or that kind of thing. And so I would try to listen to other songs and then try to like take little things from that in my head and write my own verses, I guess. And that's kind of like how I kind of started doing that. And so I kept a little notebook on me, and it's really sad. Like, it's really bad. Like, I'm sure if I went back and read a lot of stuff, it would be like, it was cringe. But I would like keep a little notebook on me. And if I heard it like a song, I would write down the name of the song, or like a songwriter or something. And I was telling Hogan about this on the way over. Like,
Hogan's his wife. Everyone's wondering.
That's my wife. Yeah. And on the way over, I was telling her about this. I have a flash drive when I was in school, and I had a flash drive, and I had like all these folders in it, and I would take songwriters and like get online and copy their song lyrics and put it in these folders.
Okay.
And read through like the song lyrics, but look at like how they put the rhyme scheme and all that. And that was kind of the first way I figured out how to, I don't know, like structure, I guess, from song, which is funny because when you read the poem in your head, it makes sense to you, but then you show it to someone else and they're like, okay, because they can't hear your thoughts, and so they just think it's just like stupid rhyming lines.
Yeah, they don't have the cadence that you have.
And so you get like, it's that thing, you get really excited in the moment, and then you show it to someone and you're like, that doesn't translate well at all. But yeah, I think it was probably about like, I think it was 15 is when I wrote my first one. And then from there I started carrying the notebook. And it wasn't until I didn't think of myself as like a writer. I wasn't like, I'm writing, I was just like trying to like vocalize my thoughts somehow or something.
Yeah.
And I showed something to a friend at school, and she made the comment. She was like, "Oh, you're a really good writer." And I was like, maybe I am a writer,
Maybe
I never thought about that. And so, and so that's kind of where like, and by that point I was like 18 or 19. So there's like a period of time where I was just writing stuff down in notebooks. And, and then I showed one thing to somebody, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're a really good writer." And I was like, "Oh, I never thought of myself as a writer. I thought this was just like something I do that I don't show people unless, it's something I thought they would like, So yeah.
Well, very cool. Very cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So we both kind of started our journey pretty early with writing, and, kind of the same way, like a lot of my writing I wasn't trying to do anything. It was just basically getting thoughts down and rhyming structures, So, for those of you listening, we're talking about creative things, but I feel like they should get to know us a little better, know who we are as hosts and why we are doing this and how unqualified we are to do this, but we're doing it anyways.
Yes.
So, so Ben, why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory, who you are? I mean, you could tell us whatever you want, but just the listener wants to know, who is this Benjamin Burley?
When I was 17, I murdered my father.
Okay, thanks everyone. Good night. We'll see you never, because the show's over now.
The show's over.
To murder.
He's going to prison. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm not throwing you under the bus or anything.
And then why don't you start and then kind of bring us up to date with what your current project is?
Okay. So I started not seriously. I was at more of like an internship, and there was a function of the internship that tried to focus on creativity and all that kind of stuff. And so in that avenue, I started trying to be a lot more purposeful, and I'm probably like 18, 19, and trying to be a lot more purposeful in art, which is interesting because it's a ministry based internship. So it's like art ministry. It's a weird thing. And so I ended up after like I left that and I ended up attending a class, and it was called Blast. It was Building Leaders, Authors, Speakers, and Teachers. And it was taught by a like national best-selling author. And I would go every month to this class and sit in there, and she would like coach us on presentation and speaking and like writing and all these different writing drills and stuff like that. And so I kind of got introduced to a lot of more professional like thought processes, I guess. Mm-hmm. But over the years, it was just something that I still kind of just did for myself. I never really like did anything with it. At one point I tried like blogging and trying to do that kind of stuff.
Haven't we all tried to blog?
Oh man, the blogging thing. Yeah, I did that for a little bit. And that was weird because, you know, there's a dynamic of like, how personal do I want to be with this? Yeah. You know, what am I supposed to talk about versus what do I want to talk about? You know, and so that you're always kind of torn. How do you want people
to perceive you?
Yeah,
with what
like
you're
I don't want to, you know, I don't want to throw all my stuff out there and then people think I'm weird or need help or something, you know, and I'm just being vocal. But I did a lot of writing, and that was really good for me because that was just an outlet, and that was like me kind of discovering my voice a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And then time went on, and then I eventually got to the point where I had a concept that I wanted to do for a book, and the concept to the actual book, there was probably about maybe a 9 or 10 year span.
Okay.
And so I ended up publishing my first book in 2022, and it is a book of poetry, but it's collective poetry that kind of tells an underlying story. And so, so yeah, that's kind of like for me as a writer, the process of like starting and being introduced to things, and then kind of my journey through that. In the middle of that, I did a lot of other stuff. Like I did spoken word. I would write spoken word and perform and do that kind of stuff. And, you know, I've written articles for local magazines and stuff like that. So little things here and there that you're able to kind of get in on, and like everything is just kind of a step. It's just kind of a stepping stone into something else. And you don't know what you're doing at all. And so you're just kind of like stepping out, hoping this thing will hold you up. Yeah. And then you're kind of, once you get on it, you kind of find your balance and kind of figure out how you can make it to the next step. And so it's intimidating because you take on projects and you're like, I don't know if I'm qualified to do this. I don't know what I'm doing, but you have to do it to find out. And so no one knows what they're doing. So until you take that step and discover if it's going to hold you or not, you're either going to like catch your balance, or the stone's going to sink and you're going to be like ankle deep in the water, and you're going to have to go buy new shoes and start all over. So so it's just a process. Like nobody really knows. And you just have to do it. I finally just got to the point where I was like, I just really need to do this, because I had 10 years of like this concept and putting pieces and like writing and kind of holding on to stuff and tweaking and going through it. And then, the last year I went through a frenzy of like trying to get as much as I could. And so I wrote over the course of a year, and then took a bunch of stuff I had taken over several years and kind of pieced them all together, and then had a book. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
It was pretty fun.
And what's the name of your book, and where can people find it?
The book is Say It Softly, A Poetic Journey from Hello to I Love You. You can go to my website, which is benburley.com. Or you can go to Amazon and just search the book. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome. And apart from writing, what else do you like to do? Where does Ben find himself on a day where he can just be himself and go do fun things?
I freaking love movies, but I love classic movies. So I really love, some of my favorite movies are like 50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
Because the nostalgia factor, black and white, the writing, the style of dialogue and writing is just so different. And in many ways, that's why it's timeless, is because in many ways it's a lot more poetic, or it's a lot more dramatically enhanced for the time. And so I am a big classic movie person. I wouldn't say I'm a buffer nerd because I haven't seen near close to everything, but I love it. And then I like coffee. I drink coffee a lot.
Yeah.
So those are kind of my two things. I also like jazz. I've gotten into jazz a lot over the years. I don't know. Do you listen to jazz at all?
I do. I definitely enjoy some jazz. I enjoy many genres of music except new country. But pretty much. But no, jazz. I love jazz. Jazz is great.
Yeah, jazz has been like a staple over the last probably 7-8 years, I think.
Yeah.
So I've really gotten into a lot of classic 60s jazz and stuff like that.
So Ben is an old soul.
Yeah, I'm kind of an old soul at heart.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Awesome. Well, I guess I should probably tell them about me, shouldn't I?
Yeah, you should talk about yourself for a little bit.
Okay. But we're having such a great time listening to you.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Talk about yourself. All right, I guess I'll talk about myself.
Yeah, I want to hear the backstory of Corey. Because I know you've been involved in a lot of creative things. You've been in several bands and all that stuff. So I want to hear the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a homeschool kid.
Okay.
Spent a lot of time in my room, basically reading video games. Started learning guitar at 13, and so I had a lot of time to like fiddle around on the guitar and just read, and just a lot of time to myself, which was great. I loved it. But yeah, I started. So most of my background is in music and writing songs. More so than other things. But yeah, I started guitar and writing 13, 14, 15. And then, yeah, as time went on, I've played and toured in several bands all across the U.S., went through Canada and just played in everything from rock bands, punk bands to post-hardcore bands.
That's awesome.
And then released a couple solo records. And then, yeah, so I did a lot of my writings for that. Which is great. You know, it's all poetry in itself, songwriting, poetry. There's a lot of crossover, just different styles, of how it's done.
What are some names of some of the bands, or would anyone listening know some of the bands?
Maybe, depending on what style of music they listen to. So I was in a band called Starlit Platoon.
Yes.
The drummer.
Classic.
From, if anyone remembers the band Super Chick, Brandon Estelle, the drummer from Super Chick, started a band called Starlit Platoon. And then eventually I came on as their bass player to replace their first bass player they had, me and my buddy Duncan. And so we played a lot of shows and toured with Starlit Platoon, a big CCM artist, look them up. I was also in a pretty decently sized band, post-hardcore band called A Sequence of Ghosts. So if you like Under Oath and like post-hardcore bands like that.
I love that name.
A Sequence of Ghosts. It's very poetic in itself.
Yes.
I was in a band called that, and a band called The Revolution from Kansas City. Did a lot of touring with those guys. Played some shows with a band called Cold Trip Nowhere, Boys Home. I absolutely loved playing with those guys. Played bass for Phil Stacey once.
Nice.
American Idol finalist. Actually, I don't think he was a finalist. I think he got like 4th or 5th place, something like that. Anyway,
he was pretty up there.
Yeah, he was pretty up there. Yeah. Played bass for that guy. Not for a long period of time. It was just like, I think like 1 or 2 shows. And then, so that was kind of my music background. In 2014, I published my first book, Parking Lot Poetry, which was a collection of poems that I had basically written while out on the road. Most of the poems I wrote were when I was out on the road touring and playing music.
Yeah.
You have a lot of time to yourself when you're having these 6-hour long drives through the night to get to the next town, or when you're sleeping in a Walmart parking lot with nothing to do. So I did a lot of writing. In 2014, I published a book called Parking Lot Poetry, hence the name Parking Lot, because that's where I was sleeping most of the time. And then a year after that, I published a chapbook called South. I was planning on doing this 4-part series where each chapbook was a direction, north, south, east, west. Okay. I got through South, and then I don't know, a lot of things came up and I just never finished the rest of it.
Oh, okay.
So maybe eventually I'll go back to that.
Is South published? Can people find it?
It is, yeah. So you can find Parking Lot Poetry and South on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. I don't have a website anymore for my writing stuff. I make make that again. We'll see.
I think you should.
I probably should.
I definitely think you should.
I do have, so I also do a lot of voiceover work and like voice acting and stuff.
Yeah,
So I do have a website, CoreyKellerVO.com, where I kind of put some stuff on there, but I might just merge those all into one super website. I don't know. I'll think about it.
Sweet. I think you should.
Yeah. And then I also do a lot of writing for RPGs.
Okay.
So I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop games. And so a lot of my writing comes from running games for my friends and with people and taking them through stories. I will say, if you are a writer, you need to write adventures for tabletop games, because it definitely challenges you, because you are literally taking people through your story.
Oh my gosh.
You are the guy.
That's a lot of pressure.
You're writing an adventure, these backstories, these journeys, these characters that you are taking actual players through. So they're experiencing your story that you wrote. And so anyone's a writer, I suggest you need to write a tabletop adventure and take players through it, because it's beautiful. It's fun. It tests your writing. It's great. So I do have a couple things I wrote, some RPG stories. Excuse me, I'm burping up this coffee that you can find on dmsguild.com. Just search for Corey Keller. You can find it there. That's kind of my backstory, I guess. I do a lot of music, writing, voice acting, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
So
cool.
Yeah. And then currently, my current projects I'm working on, I tend to go too big, and then I get myself in way too deep, and I either give up and move on to something else or see it through. So currently I am in the middle of writing a novel. I'm about a third of the way through it because I keep taking my sweet time. But here's the crazy thing. I am also designing a video game that goes along with the book. So not only am I writing the book, but I'm also designing a 2D RPG video game with the same story that you can see visually.
That's such a freaking good idea.
It could take me another 2 years. It could take me 10 more years. I don't know. But eventually I'll get done with that. But that's my current project I'm working on.
I love that, dude. That's such a good idea. That's so cool. I remember when you first told us about that, I was like, how freaking awesome. It's an immersive novel. Mm-hmm. Like, that's so great.
You'll be able to read it. If you just want to read it as a story, great. If you're a gamer, you can play the game, or you can do both. But they'll both basically have the same story. Obviously, the book's going to be way more in depth. But the video game will basically tell the story through game.
That's awesome. Sick.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about us, listener. And those of you watching the video on YouTube, yes, this is not only an audio podcast, but video as well. So we're super excited about that. We figure we'll hit everybody up,
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Who were some of your big influences as far as writing, whether it was a songwriter or poet or author?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So my favorite band, Augustana, the songwriter Dan Leas, has been a huge inspiration in my writing.
Okay.
The way he writes songs, I just absolutely love. Also, another one that inspires me a lot in my writing and just in things in general is, do you ever listen to Damien Rice?
Oh, dude. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Many a lonely nights.
Many a lonely nights, yes. Damien Rice is one of my... So Damien Rice and Dan Leas from Augustana are kind of like my go-tos when I just want to sit, shut out the world.
Absolutely.
Listen and get some inspiration.
Man, I used to listen to Damien on the train because I would take a train from Oklahoma City to Fort Worth, and that's where I would go to class and once a month. And that Damien was train music.
Yeah.
Total, man. It was a whole vibe.
Oh, it's so good. You can just get lost in the music.
My favorite line of his, I don't remember the song because I haven't listened to it in a while, but the best visual line is, waking up without you is like drinking from an empty cup.
Yes. Yeah.
So freaking good. I love it.
Yeah. And so, those are my big inspirations, especially when it comes to like music and even writing, just because you break down their lyrics. And like you said, just the lines they write, it's just so good. So if you haven't listened to them, go listen to them. You're going to cry, weep, laugh. It's great. Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking about it, man.
What about you? What are some of your inspirations?
I got inspired by a lot of artists musically. Like I said, I would copy their lyrics. Some poets that really were inspiring. Billy Collins was a big one. Of course, everyone says Bukowski. We all know. Bukowski's genius because he can make you think that you can write just as good as him.
Yeah.
And he'll make you think, oh, I could do that. I could be famous. And then you can't. You cannot. You will never achieve the level of Bukowski. So just don't worry about it.
Wait, you mean if I start writing, I'm not going to get famous?
No, you're not.
Okay.
No.
Hard reality, kids.
Not Bukowski famous. No, you might. I don't know. You totally could. Anything's possible. But Billy Collins, Bukowski, Don Miller's book, Blue Like Jazz, and Searching for God Knows What. Searching was actually the first one I read of his, and that was really good. Just from like the message point, but also just from the writing perspective.
Yeah.
Because he's so conversational in his stuff. And then another big one he was a pastor, and then he was a professor and a poet. His name is Calvin Miller, and he is actually an Enid-based author.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was born and raised in Enid in like the 1930s, I think.
And for those of you wondering, Enid is actually where we live at the moment, Enid,
Yes.
Oklahoma. So,
but he wrote tons of books and stuff. He was very creative. He was the type of guy that the church didn't know what to do with because he was extremely insightful and philosophical, but at the same time, he was extremely artistic. And he would write poems. He took the concept of the Gospels and broke them down into allegorical poems in a 3-part series. And they're like the most beautifully written books. Whether you claim to be Christian or not, doesn't matter. They're beautifully written. And the thing that he was masterful at is giving a wave of emotion or imagery in as few words as possible.
Yeah.
Like he would have like a 2-word sentence and it would just hit you right in the gut. And you're just like, oh, how do you do that? You know?
Yeah.
And so he was a big one because it was like, how do you take 2-3 words and mold them into something that is so impactful or powerful, you know? And so that was a big influence as far as like impact or effect, I think.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah. That's great. And it reminded me of, so someone recently that I found out that you like, that I like, is a skinny young poet from Arkansas, Bradley Hathaway.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know what that made me think of that, but because we're talking about people that inspire too. So I found out about Bradley Hathaway when I was on the road touring, playing music, because I know Bradley was huge in like going to Cornerstone Festival and a lot of those big festivals and stuff. And so Bradley Hathaway is a spoken word poet. Also has a book out that Ben and I both own, and it's just, his style is so unique and interesting and makes you think and makes you laugh and make you it's awesome. It's great. And it's one thing I love about a lot of like spoken word poetry and artists is just the way they play with words.
Yeah.
Not just write stuff, but the way they're able to play with the words and tie them together in really unique ways. And so, yeah, I remember the first time I heard Bradley Hathaway, it completely changed the way that I wanted to write. And so I started kind of mimicking and trying to figure some things out, kind of the way that he was doing things. And I even I think I recorded a couple different like spoken word things, but like played to music, but you know, spoken over. I never released those. I just wanted to do them and I kept them to myself. But, we were just talking about inspiration. I just remember that. And that was one thing that stuck with me. And then I went down the rabbit hole, deep dive of like, I got to find every spoken word artist that has music and, that I could find. And it led me to another Arkansas spoken word poet, goes by the name Listener. And it's just, that stuff is just so good. Yeah,
it is good, man. Something about like the effect of emotion and music and like poetry. And it's a winning combination.
Just taking all those and just molding it together.
Back in the blogging days, I had a friend, you might know him, Eric Castillo.
Oh yeah. He's currently like, he just got back from Mexico.
He got back from Mexico recently, and he was doing like a 74-day trek through all these countries. But Eric and I we would do the spoken word with music together, and he would play his guitar and I would do the poetry. And I was still kind of at the cross, like the point of like, I don't know really what I'm doing. And I would have some stuff that was okay. And other stuff I was like, oh, but, his like guitar playing, dude, was solid, man.
Yeah.
We would do like a poem and then I would step away and he would go into like a 4-minute, just like solo. And I would step back in and finish the poem or something. And then, so it was probably really funny because there's this like really skinny, like white boy trying to do spoken word. And then it's like, oh, whatever. And then this guitar player steps in and it's like, like goes on this blues, like, I don't know, experience. And yeah, that was some fun times. So I think Hathaway was a big influence in that. Did you ever listen to Propaganda?
The rapper.
Yeah, the rapper,
right?
hip hop,
Yes,
spoken word stuff. He was
Yeah.
another influence later on. Because he would do like YouTube videos and stuff. And I'm sure he still does. I haven't looked him up in a while, but they would go into these, they would go like to Georgia to like the big spoken word, like festivals and stuff. And, I don't know. I would just get on and watch his live stuff. It was so good, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually ripped him off. They tried to like take his concepts and like make them their own, and it just never worked.
I mean, it kind of happens whenever you have like the person who kind of starts this trend and like breaks through and creates their own style. Then pretty soon everybody's copying. Oh, because I mean, I feel like we're all kind of guilty of that. We find that one thing that we like, oh, I love this. And it's like, it starts to influence you. And then there's, like you said, there's some people just blatantly rip it off because they just want to profit from that. But isn't it weird how when we can kind of be in our journey of our writing or whatever it is that we're doing, whatever your craft may be, and then you just find that one person out of the blue that you're just like, oh my, or that one thing out of the blue is like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then it just starts to influence how you do things.
It does, man.
And then pretty soon you're kind of taking from that and you're starting to see it in your own work. And then a year later down the road, something else pops up and you're like, oh shoot, now I have these two things blended into my own work.
Yeah.
And you're kind of just a mixture of what influences you.
It's just like constant evolving.
Yeah.
You're just absorbing things and working them and fitting them in somewhere and kind of like trying to stuff them in your bag and then trying to pull things out of that you can create. And that's just kind of how you find your voice, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Because we are all a product of what inspires us or what we have soaked in, whether we know it or not, and it shows in our work.
Yeah.
You know, there's literally nothing original anymore because what we think is original,
everything's been said
10 years ago, 50 years ago, it's been done by someone else who was influenced by someone before them. And it's just all just kind of trickled down. And so when you think you've kind of broken through in some new thing, it's like, well, it's probably already been done because this person influenced this person, which influenced this person, which is how we have genres of music, you know, because this one inspired this one. They created their own subgenre of that genre. And same thing with writing and music and just whatever.
For sure. There's just constant evolution.
Yeah. Have you ever read that book, Still Like an Artist?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Austin Kleon, man.
Yeah.
I want someday to write something and then have him do the foreword for it. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but
yeah.
So Austin, if you're listening,
right.
We should work together.
Yeah. We'll have our people call your people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wait, who's our people? We don't have people.
We have people.
We are our own people. Yes. All right. So yeah, that's what this show is going to be all about. It's just, we're going to sit here. We're going to talk about creative things.
I love it.
We're going to get more specific as episodes come where we're going to, have like a topic that we'll cover and kind of discuss, and it's going to be free formed. We're going to have a million rabbit trails. It's just going to happen. And I'm excited when we start getting some guests on here because
me too, man.
I think the important thing is sharing our journeys, learning from people who have gone down, different paths, taken different journeys, and then just learning from them, and just finding new ways to do things, because of other people's story and what inspires them. And so getting to hear from all these other people and get to ask them questions, I think it's going to be absolutely great.
I think so too. I'm really excited for that. I'm excited to broaden the conversation.
Yes.
And I'm excited to hear other people's stories and find out the struggles they've had, the trials they've been through that's kind of helped them shape where they are at and where they want to be. Like, I'm all about that. I want to know.
Yeah. And luckily I've never failed at anything. And I'm like,
Dude,
everything I've done has been gold and perfect.
I don't know what happens, man. You just sit down to do something and it comes out perfect.
And all these people complaining that it's hard. Like, whew.
I sleep so good every night. I don't lose sleep over anything, man.
Yeah, we're absolutely lying. Yeah.
Through the teeth.
Awesome. Well, I mean, we might as well be open and honest with people. You want to maybe share something from our books with the listeners?
I mean,
get it out of the way.
I'm
get
down
it out of the way
if you want to.
Yeah. So I brought our books on the table here.
Ooh.
So here's yours. Let me grab mine and under this. So those listening,
way down there.
Yeah, those listening, I'm rifling through some books. Those watching can see me doing it. Ha. All right. So do we want to flip to a random page, or is there one specific you want to actually?
I may pick a specific one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want sad or
always? So I have a saying that I love to say. Obviously, I didn't come up with the saying, but I've seen it on shirts and I've heard other artists say it. But one of my favorite sayings is sad songs make me happy, because it's true.
Dude, that is the truth, man.
I'm trying to find something that's not like super long.
I know, same. Trying to find something that I can.
It's like, yeah, I want to, let's see. I'm just going to flip through and, oh no, I know which one I want to read. I think it's this one's, nope, not that one. So this is really exciting for those listening. They're like, I just hear paper, rustling.
Yes, that was the paper, by the way. That's all I was. Okay, I've got mine. I think I know what I'm gonna get.
Go for it.
I gotta get back to it.
Oh, I was
flipping the pages. Okay. This is one that I wrote a few years ago, and I'm actually really proud of it. It could be taken in several different ways. It's about loneliness and loss, and it could be taken as a breakup, or it could be taken as like a death,
okay,
or something like that. It's called Evidence. I want to wake up and see the evidence of you sleeping next to me, to throw back the covers in the morning time and see the imprints in the pillow where your head lay next to mine, to get out of bed and enter the bathroom just to find the remaining strands on the sink where you fixed your hair, to leave the bathroom and go down the stairs, following your scent through the morning indoor air. And I want to find you, maybe in the kitchen making breakfast, or on your phone browsing Instagram, or in the living room watching TV. I don't really care, as long as I find you there. But in reality, all I wake to is an extra pillow in my bed. And even though I look every morning, I never find any signs of your resting head. My bathroom countertop is bare, no second toothbrush, no aimless strands of hair. No scent to follow down the stairs. No oxygen to breathe in the morning air. Instead, all I wake to find are bitter memories from a sweeter time. Whoa. That's one of my favorites.
Hot dang. And where can they find that book again?
Actually, I think I haven't even been to my website in so long. What is it? BenjaminBurley.com. I went big on that. BenjaminBurley.com. And it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Waterstone, anywhere you could get books, basically. So
yeah, have fun spelling his name.
Yep.
All right. So this poem is called "Get a Real Job?" ? So like I said, Parking Lot Poetry was a lot of poems that I wrote while being on the road.
Nice.
So a lot of that kind of has those themes: struggling with spirituality, struggling with what am I doing with my life, and that kind of stuff.
100%.
And so, yeah, this one's called "Get a Real Job." I have not read this in a very long time, so awesome. This is going to be great.
Let's go for it.
I'm probably going to be like, did I write this? I don't even remember writing. All right. Thousands of miles on pavement, we set out to conquer cities. With this van as our chariot and parking lots as our home, we used our voices to touch your soul. Our melodies painted pictures of a message we wished to portray. Our screams were a release for everything you ever wanted to say. We sang in unison for just one night before we said goodbye, and awoke 300 miles away just to do it all over again. Dumpsters were our kitchens while coffee shops kept us warm. We sacrificed relationships, fought distraction, all in the name of passion. We strained our hearts onto paper and penned our pain. Our fingers bled, our voices died, and we never found fame. After many sleepless nights and hundreds of different sunsets, all I can think of is I would do this all over again.
Dang. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I get snaps
Gotta get the
in there.
snaps going.
Yeah, so Parking Lot Poetry, you can find that on
Heck
Amazon,
yeah.
BarnesandNoble.com, or eBay.
Nice. Go down
Or
to
your local thrift store. Local
Love
thrift
that.
store. Awesome. Yeah, so anything else you want to leave our listeners with before we pick our prompt for next week?
I don't think so, man. I'm ready to dive in.
I
want to
know,
what
this
the
is the
prompt's
scary
going to
part.
be.
This is the
I'm
scary
nervous.
part.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, like we said, each week we are going to get a prompt from a listener. Now listen, if you want to send in your own prompt, it can literally be anything. If you're like, hey, write a poem about bowel movements, or whatever you want it to be, whatever prompt, it could be one word, whatever. You can email those prompts to us at TwoPoetsPodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at TwoPoetsPodcast. We love using the social, so please write us, send us a message. You can send us an email. You can tag us, whatever. Just send us those prompts and we will add them to the queue. And then we're basically just going to randomly pick one. So we have a list of 4 prompts that Hogan, Ben's wife, was generous enough to write for us, since we don't have any listeners listening yet to suggest prompts. So we needed someone to come up with some prompts. So I have this. So we have 4 prompts to choose from. I'm going to have this D4 dice. And I'm going to have Ben roll it.
Oh, crap.
And that'll tell us what we are going to pick. Now, I don't have a wooden top, so you're not going to hear the dice roll, but he is rolling it.
I'm going to throw it up in the air really high.
3. Roll again, please. I don't want to do this. No, I'm just kidding.
Crap. What is it?
Just kidding. All right. So the prompt is, I forgot to number these. I'll just go to, okay. Here, there it is. So write a poem or story about the power of language or the act of writing itself.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So listeners, next week, we're going to spend this week and come up with either a poem or a short story about the power of language or the act of writing.
The act of writing.
Yeah.
Dang.
That's good. That's a good challenge.
right.
That's a good one. That's going to
one.
be tough. Yeah. And that's what we're looking forward to is getting to do this. And who knows, I might write a song for one of the prompts.
Hey, there you go.
Not this one, but
No. No way.
who knows? And the great thing is when we have guests on here, we're going to make them do these prompts as well. So get creative with your prompts, shoot us your messages, and we'll be back next week with our poems. And we're going to discuss how we wrote them, the inspiration we took to write them. And we'll spend a good portion kind of talking about that. And then we will have a topic that covers creativity in some way. And we're going to talk about that next week. So yeah, keep coming back every week, and you can find us basically wherever you listen to podcasts. And also catch us on YouTube if you like. If you're a visual person and want to actually see our faces, you can find us on YouTube also at Two Poets Podcast. So Ben, anything you want to leave our listeners with before we head out?
I am just excited to dive in. I'm excited to get honest and real, and I'm excited for a challenge. I'm ready for some challenging creative steps, I think. So
it is going to be my challenge to make you cry.
Oh, dude, that's easy. No, that's not a challenge.
Okay, good. So set the bar low. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week on Two Poets Podcast.